I don't think, short answer, I don't think that there is enough awareness about ACL injuries and the mechanisms, so how they're actually happening globally. And I think that's why it's so important to continue to do studies, but also make sure that the information from these studies is getting to the right people, getting to the physios and the sports scientists that are on the ground working with players, but also for the players themselves, that that information is accessible. I mean, what we found in our study was that the percentage of non-contact ACL injuries was so high, and that astounded me. I mean, even playing 25 years in the sport, seeing so many ACL injuries, I was fortunate enough not to have one, but so many of my teammates had it. At Duke University, we did a big ACL study and prevention program. And still, you know, when that study came out and I saw those results, I was shocked. And I think it's so important as a player to understand how injuries are happening so you can prevent it. You can, you know, train against it mentally, physically, understanding the mechanisms of how things are happening, so that you can help yourself to be able to avoid. And I think that's the main thing that we need to improve in the women's game, is the information that players are getting so that they can better support themselves, as well as, you know, relying on the medical teams to support them as well. I think that the medical topic isn't taken seriously enough in the women's game. I don't think that every club, every federation, all the national teams and confederations are looking at the medical topic seriously enough. I think that, you know, especially on the women's side, they come through and they're sacrificing their bodies literally for the sport that they love, to represent their countries, to play in a club. And the rewards that they get are not as high on the men's side, you know. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be the same support for men, but especially specifically on the women's side, there's a really big problem with the lack of medical support and attention that those players are getting. If you look at some of the budgets of even some of the biggest clubs right now in the world globally for the women's side, I bet the budget lines for the medical care is still not enough to support those players properly, both with prevention and also injury, you know, dealing with injury and then coming back, you know. So even they go and they get their surgery, but then we all know that the rehab is probably the most important part of coming back to full playing it at 100%. So I think that there needs to be a lot more emphasis, a lot more resources, and there needs to be a lot better communication as well, because there is a lot of information out there about injury and prevention and how to come back. But I don't think that the players are getting that information proactively by the club. So if there's a lot more focus on it, if there are more resources and importance put on the medical part of the game, I think that we would see a high reduction in injuries. We'd see happier players mentally, you know, because when we get injured, it affects our mental health. And so I think that the sport overall would improve quite a lot if we put more emphasis on the medical support to female players. Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I really thank you for asking, actually, because I have been a patient for many different reasons, unfortunately, through my career, after my career as well, dealing with the injuries from my football career. And I think I just appreciate the openness to grow and to learn from the medical side, because I think that there's some sort of a stereotype as well, you know, from doctors and physios, that there's, if I'm allowed to be really honest, an ego, you know, that doctors know everything, that, you know, they have all the answers, and that you as a patient, you don't feel very comfortable sometimes asking these questions and having an open dialogue. And that doctors and physios take the time, you know, to really explain. So I think communication is key. I think that, you know, doctors and physios have a responsibility to their patients to fully explain what's going on, why it's going on, what the recovery process is going to be like, and have constant dialogue. I think the worst thing that you have as a patient and a player is the unknown. You know, you get injured, you know something's wrong, you feel it in your knee, and you're just thinking, okay, what does this mean? How long is it going to take me to come back? How hard is the rehab going to be? Will I ever be at 100%? What are the statistics of this type of injury with all the players that have come before me? All that information, I think, can really help the mental health of patients. And I truly believe that if you feel confident and you feel comfortable mentally, your body will respond better to recovery. You know, it will be more open, and you'll also be able to make better decisions. There's so many, looking back now, there's so many things I did as a patient that now I realize were not good for, you know, that time. I would have recovered a lot quicker had I known whatever that piece of information is. So that proactive information and the communication from doctors and physios, I think would be so helpful for players. All right, great. Well, have a good one.